Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. We're glad to have you today. I'm Carl Blackstone, President and CEO of the Columbia Chamber, and it's my pleasure to welcome y'all here today. We've got some great partners that have helped us put this on today, so we want to thank the Urban Land Institute and the Hospitality and Lodging Association. John Durst's been great. Restaurant and Lodging Association, so we appreciate their partnership in this. And again, I want to thank the candidates for mayor of the city of Columbia for being here today. We really appreciate it. And for those, just so y'all will know, we have a number of people that committed to being here in person, but a large number of people that are tuning in right now online. And so we want to welcome those folks as well. Thanks for not coming because parking, but we're glad you've tuned in with us. So it's my distinct pleasure now. I want to turn this program over to our good friend, Kurt Randozza. Kurt is been very active at the Columbia Chamber. He's been part of the Leadership Columbia class. He's actually, if you've ever been to our gala, he is our, we call it voice of God, but our moderator. And but that's his play gig. His real job is he is the professor and department chair of the Political Science College of Arts and Science. He's very active in the community. But again, his proudest part is he's an alum of Leadership Columbia. So Kurt, thanks so much for you and Kim for helping us. Kim McMahon back with, she's chair of Leadership Columbia Alumni Association this year and works here at the Russell House. So we appreciate the partnership with USC and opening your doors for us. We really appreciate it. So Kurt, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the University of South Carolina. As you heard, my name is Kirk Randazzo. I'm chair of the Political Science Department here. And it's incredibly special opportunity for us to get to know our mayoral candidates a little bit better. And appreciate all of you for your commitment, your public service, your leadership, and very much look forward to the next hour of our time together. For those of us that are either here in the audience or online, this is going to be a question and answer format based on input from the business community. We have questions that came in from various sponsors, various individuals, from students at the University of South Carolina, and we're going to try and get through as many of them as we can. But as you know, with most of these things, we will probably run out of time. So we will do our best, but appreciate you being flexible with us. The forum tonight is being shared via YouTube, Facebook Live, and Zoom. And it's also being recorded and will be available on the Columbia Chamber's website. So with that in mind, let's jump right to it. And for our panelists, just to let you know, when we get into the Q&A session, you will each have 2 minutes to respond. My friend Meg here is keeping time for us. She will let you know when you have about 5 seconds left so you can wrap up your comments. And if you don't wrap those up within 5 minutes or 5 seconds, I'll have to put my professor hat on and dock you points for participation or your letter grade or something along those lines. So let's get to it. And I will introduce the candidates in alphabetical order and give them each a minute to share some opening remarks before we get into our questions. So our first candidate is Mo Baduro.
Oh, thank you all for having me. In August 4th, 1980, this Lebanese immigrant came to Columbia, South Carolina to achieve the American dream and to follow his uncle, the late Andy Sloan of Andy's Deli. So for us to achieve or make our city the American dream city, we have to work on 5 different things that make our city the American dream city for anybody to achieve. 1, end corruption. 2, make our city and community safe by bringing community policing. 3, work on our infrastructure by improving our water lines, sewer lines, and our roads all over the city. 4, eliminate small business license fee tax anywhere in the city. And number 5, develop the riverfront and bring more opportunities for anybody to come, the small businesses and large, to enhance and bring more jobs to our city where college students from the city, anywhere from USC, Midlands Tech, or any other colleges can stay here and raise their family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. Our next candidate is Tamika Isaac Devine. Tamika, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tamika Isaac Devine, current at-large member of Columbia City Council and candidate for mayor. I'm also a wife, a mom, a small business person. I'm also a graduate of Leadership Columbia, but at the heart, I'm a public servant. I've humbly served the city for the last 19 years as an at-large council person. And as an at-large council person, I understand the uniqueness of our city, but I also understand the great opportunities that we have. Being able to see the city from citywide perspective, the inside, outside, but also as a wife and a mom raising a family here in the city of Columbia, I understand the bold leadership we need to take advantage of opportunities to continue to grow our city, make sure it's more business friendly, and make sure it's more equitable. And so that's why I'm running for mayor. I'm running for mayor to be an independent voice, someone who's championing all communities and promoting inclusive and equitable growth. So no matter where you live in this city, you know you have a champion in the mayor's office. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Tamika. Our third candidate is Sam Johnson. Sam, please.
First, I'd like to thank the chamber and partners for putting this together. These forums are extremely important. They give us an opportunity to vision, to imagine what Columbia should be. I remember, I was telling some folks earlier, I remember me and my wife's first date was right outside these walls. I remember being a freshman at this university and thinking that where is the world going to take me? Where am I going to go from here? And as mayor, we've got to make sure that Columbia is the place where we're able to retain the 60,000 students that we graduate a year. When you look at Columbia as a place where we are the capital of talent in the Southeast, we've got to make sure that that's who we are. We've got to make sure that we are positioning ourselves not for next year, not for 5 years from now, but we're thinking about 10, 20 years from now. Where does Columbia go? How do we make sure that we are the most talented place in Columbia in the world? And so we have to make sure that we are visioning and thinking about how do we get there. And so as somebody who's been born and raised in this city, who met my wife at this university, who's had an amazing opportunity to be involved in the mayor's office, who's helped bring economic development to this city, we've got to think boldly about where we're going to go from here, but we got to make sure that we are laying a track record of how we get there.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. Thank you. And our final candidate is Daniel Rickenman. Daniel, please.
I'm Daniel Rickeman, and I am running for mayor. I'm running because we can do better. Columbia, South Carolina used to be the number 1 city in South Carolina. We're no longer. We have hurdles that keep us from attracting investment. We have high taxes. Unfortunately, our school system is not where it should be to attract industry and investment. And our roads and infrastructure need more attention. We need to be creative. We need somebody who's a problem solver, somebody who looks at problems and projects and everything from a different perspective. I've had the great opportunity of serving on city council in 2 different stints, one as an at-large member and one as a single district. And having been here for almost 35 years, a graduate of the University of South Carolina, a first-generation American, a kid who survived high school and college with severe learning disabilities, I see Columbia as an opportunity. And if we don't change our focus, then we're not going to have a future. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So we have a variety of questions that came in that hit several different topics. We'll start with our first topic on economic development and infrastructure. Tamika, I'm going to let you answer first on this question, and then we'll give everybody else an opportunity as well. And again, please keep your comments to 2 minutes. But the first question is, what do you view as Columbia's most significant challenge to growing commercial investment, and how would you propose to address it?
Well, thank you, and that's a great question. I would say that we cannot look at something as one challenge. I think we have challenges, but we have opportunities, and we have to look at it as a multifaceted issue. I think some of the challenges and some of the opportunities for growth to attract a commercial investment is, number 1, investing in workforce development. We have people without jobs. We have jobs without people. In between there, there's a skills gap. And so we need to be making sure that we're developing the skills in our infrastructure, our human infrastructure, to meet the jobs, not just of today, but of the future. We also need to look at how do we work better together as a community. What you will find that some communities, they work together as a region. But here in Columbia, we tend to work in silos. And so we might have the city doing one thing, Richland County doing another thing, Central SC Alliance doing something else, and the chamber doing something else. Imagine the power if we take all of that and we work together collectively for a real plan to bring in economic development. And then in addition to that, we have to look at our taxing infrastructure, our taxing structure. We do know that we have challenges with our taxing structure. Part of it is because a lot of our property is off the tax rolls. Some of it is because our property values are depressed. And so how do we work together as a community and address those issues? The city can't do it alone. And so when we talk about our tax structure, having a conversation among city council is not going to fix the problem. We've got to bring the school district to the table. We've got to bring our county partners to the table. We've got to bring our state partners to the table in order to really make sure that we have a tax structure, not only that is more attractive and welcoming, but that is also equitable. And then lastly, I would say that we have to create the environment that's welcoming. We have to have someone like the mayor that is an ambassador, that is going on trade missions and outside and helping recruit business. I remember working with Mayor Bob and going on trips and making sure that we were not only selling Columbia, but showing people that Columbia wanted you. And that's what we need in our next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Daniel, will give you the next opportunity to respond. Same question. What do you view as Columbia's most significant challenge to growing commercial investment, and how would you propose to address it?
Well, I think the challenge is clear. I mean, high taxes, the unfriendly business atmosphere, and we hear it all the time. We're not luring institutional investors here. I've met with economists, investment bankers, and institutional lenders and asked them, you know, what do we do here in Columbia? I actually had groups come down here and added the talent, say, hey, look around Columbia, spend 2 hours with me. What are we missing here? Well, one, we have a reputation for high taxes, which deters investment. We have a permitting process that is not clear and creates more havoc than it does the ability to get something. To give you an example, somebody this summer opened up a pizza restaurant, $13,000 build out. It took 2 months to get the permit. That deters investment. The third part to it is we don't sell ourselves. We don't sell our assets. The opening line for a lot of people in Columbia is we're 2 hours from the beach and we're 2 hours from the mountain. That's an asset that you sell on the backside. What we need to be selling is what we have: a great flagship university. We have an incredible relationship with Fort Jackson. We have surrounding areas, but we're competing today with everybody. And the pandemic has shown us that we're not recession proof without the University of South Carolina in session and with state government out. Those are two things that we've counted on the whole time. So we need to cultivate those relationships. They need to be working together, town and gown, to grow this economy. This is our economic engine here, and the students are a big part of it. And we haven't engaged them. They need to be the part of the process. We're not keeping talent here. We're not creating jobs with opportunity, and we don't have the soil conditions here in Columbia to encourage small business growth, entrepreneurial growth. And I think you'll hear Chris Healy and some of these other folks that are here in town working on trying to create a network to attract talent here, much like Duke University say the same thing. We need to learn to collaborate, not control.
Thank you very much. Sam, will give you the next opportunity. Same question. What do you view as Columbia's most significant challenge to growing commercial investment, and how would you propose to address it?
I think the first thing is mindset. So I'm joined on the stage by 40 years of experience on city council. So you've heard a lot about we don't have this and we don't have that. The question has to be, why haven't we been working to get there? And so mindset, we got to shift the culture. We got to be willing to think about what have we done that hasn't worked, and how do we move toward what does? And so I think that's one of the things that we have to bring to the table. We have to think about fresh ideas that are going to move the needle. We have to be willing to think about, all right, guys, we've tried this for 30 and 40 years, and we haven't attracted the type of economic development that we want. So first, we have to have a plan. We have to be thinking, we look at Raleigh, we look at Durham, we look at Asheville and Charleston, of course, Greenville, we've got to be thinking, how do we make sure that we have a plan that allows for us to get the results that we want? You look at the tax study that was done last year, it highlighted one thing that was extremely alarming for me. We are 10 to 15% lower in the ages of 25 to 45 than all those cities that I just mentioned. So you think about it, how do we make sure that we are attracting young families who want to live here in Columbia? We've got to make sure that we have the quality of life, the things that companies are require if they're going to come to a city and grow. We've got to think about how do we make sure that as our young talent, the 60,000 students that we graduate a year, how do we make sure that we are able to retain them? We have a population of 135,000 people here. How do we make sure that we're growing every year as a city? We then also have to make sure that we are, that in that plan, we have an economic toolkit. If you look at Austin, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina, capital cities, they have an economic toolkit where you say, hey, I'm interested in bringing my company to your city. They have something to offer. We have to have something to offer. As someone who works at Next and Pruitt, I know when I'm representing companies here that are interested in Columbia or Beaufort or Charleston, what have you, they want to know, what do you have to offer? We need something formalized that shows what we have to offer here in Columbia. And so the last thing is we have to think very boldly about how we bring people together to train folks.
Thank you very much, Sam. Appreciate that. Sorry, time is up. So, and our final candidate, Mo, same question to you.
Can I go 10 seconds extra?
Unfortunately not. What do you view as Columbia's most significant challenge to growing commercial investment, and how would you propose to address it?
So a great question, and I think a lot of us would talk about this, and I'll just give you a little bullet points, and maybe I'll answer it instead of answer the question with another question. That being said, number one, we need to work our tax base. We have to work with our other agencies between the Richland County School District and the state, and see if we can lower the millage points on any of those agencies that they can do. I tell you, I'm optimistic, but at the same time, I'm realistic. I've never seen a government lower their millage point or their taxes because some other government wants them to. So, you know, that'll be something that I would love as mayor to work on. At the same time, I promise you, I will never increase the millage point for the city, part of the millage or property taxes, number one. Number two, we need to eliminate small business tax fees. When a developer comes in and build retail shops everywhere, the only way you can get businesses to come in and lease and rent these spaces by making it attractive to small businesses. Small businesses need a break. Eliminate small business license fee for any small business with $500,000 in revenue or under 40 employees, period. Number four, make sure we end the corruption in the city. When we talk about the reputation, we talk about philosophy. When Bull Street Development was coming around, there were a bunch of attorneys sitting in an attorney's office eating pizza at the end of the night, trying to work out a deal. And I'm not saying any one of these were, I'm just saying that's what the state paper reported back in the day. This is the kind of corruption we need to end. This is the kind of philosophy we need to end and stop. For any developer to come in and think about investing in our city, not only that, but think about investing in our community. We need to make our communities and our streets safe. We need to make sure we give quality of life for everybody that is going to come and invest in our city and bring talent and employees to their investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. Okay, for the next question, Daniel, we'll start with you. What do you see as the biggest impediment to growth in the city?
We keep going back and forth to several issues that we keep talking about. Obviously, property tax that we've addressed is a huge issue. I think the way we've handled zoning in the past has inhibited folks from being here. We've limited height. We haven't taken a part in density. We push people out. For housing, is if you look around, we talk about affordable housing. So we got, what, 46,000 homes in Columbia, 26,000 of those are rented. So that means 3.5 months of their rent is going to pay property tax. Doesn't help us grow affordable housing. It's the same challenge that we have with property tax. So when you add that along with not being able to get a permit in an amount of time, and we used to compete against Charleston and Greenville that are 38% and 48% cheaper than we are with the same tax structure. We're competing against West Columbia today. Today, you go to West Columbia and you want to build something, you've got the council member, the planning director, and the zoning director all there asking you what they can do for you because their staff has the ability and the autonomy to make decisions on the spot. And that's the difference. That's what we're competing against. And we can't compete. If we can't compete in our own region, how are we going to compete in the state? Look, these hurdles are huge. And if we don't change that structure, we're going to keep losing people. If you look at the census data, District 1 has lost 4,000 families over the last decade. We've had 2% growth as a community. The Sun Belt has said 6% growth. They're predicting double-digit growth. But if we're not having the conversation, we're not changing the rules, we're not training our staff and giving them the technology and the ability, we're not going to attract that. Without that, we don't have schools. We don't have neighborhoods. We don't have money for streets. We don't have money for cultural arts. Today, we're competing against everybody who's in the Sun Belt. So we have to address it. We have to sell our community. We have to address the taxes, the permitting, and the hurdles that
Thank
we
you,
put in
Daniel.
place. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Sam, same question to you. What do you see as the biggest impediment to growth in the city?
I think the first thing I would say, when you look at our property taxes, that is certainly a challenge. And I think we have to have a plan, as I mentioned earlier, of how we are going to mitigate them. We know our property taxes are high, and they've been high. Think about Act 388, which was passed back in 2007. We have had the same funding mechanism that has been a challenge as a state for quite some time. The state has had 2 state realignment track commissions where the legislature has studied the issue, and both of those sit on the state's website. So we have to recognize that we have to tackle this property tax issue ourselves locally. So we have to have a plan that accounts for that. The only way that we're going to do that, though, is by having a mayor who's able to work with not only the city and their own city council, but work with county council, work with our school board and school district to make sure that we are mitigating our high property taxes. So we have to have a mayor who's actually capable of getting that done. The second thing I would say is we've got to focus on the inefficiency that we have. For example, our economic development policy, which we'll put out tomorrow, calls for consolidation. Looking at consolidating our economic development departments, our planning and zoning departments, our community development departments, working more efficiently so that people don't have to circle the wagons 2 times instead of before having to work with both departments and sometimes get 2 very different answers. It's an opportunity for us to not only have two groups now become one who sing off the same sheet of music, but it's also an opportunity for us to make sure that we are working as efficiently as we possibly can when folks are trying to come here and pay us taxable revenue here in Columbia. And so those are the types of new things that we have to be willing to look at that allow for us to tackle some of these old problems that continue to linger year after year with some of our leadership. And so those are 2 great ideas that I think help mitigate some of our big challenges here in Columbia.
Thank you, Sam. Sure. So our the next opportunity, Mo, same question to you. A reminder to all folks, if you would speak closely into the microphone so that our folks online can pick up everybody's voices and hear your answers, please. Mo, same question. What do you see as the biggest impediment to growth in the city?
Investors usually look at bottom line and how they can make money, right? So taxes has been talked about, but let's talk about other factor of why would investor or why would the city would grow, right? So we need to look at neighborhoods. We need to look at the commercial districts and the residential district. We have to make our neighborhoods safe. We have to make our streets safe and fix all the potholes, remove all the steel plates from over there. So what do you do with that? You improve your quality of life. You improve the quality of life for people to come. As we've talked about tax incentives to generate more development here, it's come to the point where no developer will come in without a tax incentive. But let's support our local developers right here in the city. We have a lot of them. And they never ask for a tax incentive or any tax break in anything they do because they know what the market is like and they know how to generate profits from their investments. We need to work with our local developers and our local investors and improve our quality of life for everybody that's coming in, whether you're an investor, whether you're a worker, whether you're an executive, or even a professor at USC. They all need a quality of life for them to stay in Colombia. If you look at other cities, where'd they look? They look at Charleston. Charleston have quality of life as in beach and great life. Greenville has the same thing. But at the same time, there is no corruption there. Think about it. There is no backroom deals. There is no eating, working out and a contract in somebody's office while eating pizza at 11 o'clock at night. It doesn't happen. Only Colombia. We got to tackle the base and the philosophy of this city and this government. And the only way to do it is you have a leader like myself who understand what business people, business leaders like, and what government leaders like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. And Tamika, same question to you. What do you see as the biggest impediment to growth in the city?
I think the biggest impediment to growth in the city is that we don't work together as a region. We've got to get to the point where we understand that the growth of Columbia is directly contingent upon how strong we are as a region and as a Midlands. If we are working together as a group and we have a plan as a group, then we will go after business together as a group. We will invest in our education as a group. We will work to solve the issues of mental illness and homeless population together as a group. But until we decide to work together as a group, we will continue to have so many different people with different plans, and then we will not be able to grow. That's why we need a strong leader. We need someone who has the experience and who understands collaboration, who understands listening to people and bringing people together to move the city forward. So for the mayor of the city of Columbia, it is very important how Richland County is growing. It's very important to understand what's happening on the other side of the river. Because guess what? There might be people who live in West Columbia or Casey, but they come over into Columbia to work, they come over to Columbia to shop, and they come over to Columbia to invest. And so if we start working together as a region and move forward, we're going to understand how we build inclusive, equitable growth for our region. And every single city and every single part of this county will be strong.
Thank you very much. Hey, I'd like to transition now into talking about hospitality and tourism. And we have several questions that came in this topic as well. And so the first one, Sam, will give you the first opportunity to address. Should a greater percentage of hospitality taxes that are collected be earmarked for tourism-related projects? Why or why not?
So I would say, I'm not sure that I would earmark a greater percentage. I would say that I think we have to be extremely strategic about how we utilize our hospitality tax dollars. So for example, in the past, there's been conversation with City Council about how do we make sure that a portion of those hospitality tax dollars go towards projects that will increase specifically hospitality tax dollars. So for example, our convention center expansion, should a portion of our hospitality tax dollars go to that? Or Finley Park, should a portion of our hospitality tax dollars go to expanding or renovating our Finley Park? So I think those are questions that I'd be very open to. I would say what we have to do though is think about our arts in the sense of what are we going to do to make sure that we are retaining some of the folks that are here, right? So when we start talking about quality of life, when we start talking about some of the organizations that we have that are fundamental to Columbia, you think about the City Ballet, you think about some of the organizations like the Nickelodeon Theater and others that are unique to Columbia, that put us on the map. How do we make sure that we are investing in those organizations in a way that allow us to shine that light on organizations that are very unique to this city, that allow us to stand out as a city? I think that's how we showcase who we are and what we have in Columbia. And then we have to think very strategically about what are new things that we're going to be able to bring to the table that put Columbia further on the map, that showcase all the wonder and the lure here. So for example, do we use a portion of our hospitality tax to expand our river even? And so those are some of the conversations I think we have. I'm not sure that I would support earmarking or earmarking a larger percentage towards hospitality.
Thank you, Sam. Mo, you have the next opportunity. Same question. Should a greater percentage of hospitality taxes that are collected be earmarked for tourism-related projects? Why or why not?
So I think some of it could be allocated for tourism projects, but I don't know that I want to do a percentage year after year for the same exact reason that the law was established back in 20 years ago. So we need to bring more art groups and more festivals and more visitors to Colombia. For the reason is we want them to come back and visit, and hopefully they'll buy a house here and stay here rather than staying across the river. So it's important that we support our art groups and hospitality groups here so they can bring more people, different faces, so they can stay here and spend their money. When you think about it, this is the spendable money or spendable income that a lot of people come to spend at festivals and art festivals or art exhibitions. So it's important that we support that part of it. And we've used hospitality tax money for other tourism projects, as in the stadium, the baseball stadium at the Bull Street. We've used it at Southeast Park in a couple of bonds. So they have been used before. I just don't think the specific number or percentage is the right number, just because when we have a pandemic year like we did this past year, the hospitality tax revenue dropped over 40%. So it's important that we keep that liquid and take it 1 year at a time and project at a time rather than allocating a percentage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tamika, same question to you. Should a greater percentage of hospitality taxes that are collected be earmarked for tourism-related projects? Why or why not?
Okay. And I don't think that we should be looking at it as a percentage. I think our focus needs to be on growing the pot. When you make the investments of hospitality tax dollars and things that generate more hospitality tax dollars, then you have a bigger pot. And so it's not about the percentage, but it's about the amount of money that you have to continue to reinvest in our community. So we have to look at all the things that we're funding and make sure that there's a return on the investment. Is it growing the pot? Is it doing what tourism dollars are supposed to do? Is it getting people out, spending money, eating in restaurants, enjoying our great city, and then continuing to have that money roll over in our city? So I would be very much in favor of looking at the way we're investing those dollars, having a plan. We have a great Columbia Arts Plan that we've talked about. How do you measure that? And then we have to look at that every single year. I think the problem is sometimes you'll have different groups that are not performing, but because historically they've been funded, they continue to get funding. So we have to hold groups accountable and see how they're generating dollars, and then make sure that we're also growing the pot in an equitable way. There are so many tourism-related things that we actually have not invested in, and how do we make sure that we're investing that to bring in different types of tourists? When you look at arts and culture, when you look at people who are looking at historic preservation, all of those things are things that we need to be investing in. And so my position on this would be not looking at the percentage, but looking at how we're growing the pot, measuring how we're growing the pot, and making sure there's accountable for the groups that are receiving the money to continue to add into that pot.
Thank you. Daniel, same question to you. Should a greater percentage of hospitality taxes that are collected be earmarked for tourism-related projects? Why or why not?
I think we have to look at project specific, and I think we have to start looking at what is the return. I think when you look at hospitality money, we put close to $2.5 million into a stadium and locked it up for the next 20 years. And that stadium promised us close to 35,000 hotel nights that would help bolster. So think about what that would have done to that pot of hospitality money if those people were staying here, actually eating out and spending their money in our community. Well, it really turned out to be 500. So when we move forward, we really need to have some caveats on what we're looking at. Investing in tourism projects, and what do you count as a tourism project? West Columbia, for example, invested hospitality money in a parking lot, and look what it's done for those restaurants, what it's done for the breweries and the growth around it. That's called smart investing. There is a return attached to that. And I think if we're looking forward at different structures and investing, I don't think it ought to be a percentage, but it should be project specific, along with restrictions and clawbacks. We can no longer continue to invest in projects that aren't returning or building that pot. Hospitality tax also has its downside. It puts underprivileged families at a disadvantage because they can go to the grocery store. They can go buy, we can go buy a meal there, we can buy steaks and whatever, and they're paying 2 or 3%. But a mom who's working 2 jobs, who has to stop at a restaurant, go to Lizard's Thicket or somewhere like that to pick up meals, is paying 10% on that same food. So we got to have a balance. How do we grow with that pot without affecting folks that are less fortunate and don't have the opportunity to go to a grocery store or other places to get their meal at a reasonable price? Hospitality tax makes some people really happy. It makes some people very sad, but it is something that can be leveraged correctly to create more opportunities for tourism, but also continue to grow our arts. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to change gears now and talk about schools and education. Mo will give you the first opportunity to respond to this question. For an area to thrive, it needs good schools. How will you work with our local school districts to improve their quality of education in order to retain teachers and encourage families to live and grow in Columbia?
Great question. So it's important that we support our school district and the public schools. As a city councilman or future mayor of the city, we have to work with our superintendent in our school district to make sure that we attract the best teacher that we can, so they can provide the best teaching tools for our students. So what do I say about that? How do I mean that? How do you attract new teachers besides giving them more money? Is giving them more affordable mortgages for their houses within the city. Just like we offer the same philosophy for police officers, I think we can extend that same philosophy with the help with the school district and the help with Rickeman County, that we can offer them less property taxes for their houses if they live within the city and take a job within the school district that the city in, whether Richland 1 or Richland 2. We proposed that before, and I think the conversation never went anywhere. So it's important, as mayor, we'll take that lead and see if we can make that successful for all the teachers to come and start teaching our students in our school district. Number 2, we have to work on our infrastructure. We have to work with the school district. If they build a stadium, the city has the responsibility to make sure the infrastructure is there for the parents to get there and the students to get there. Not only that, but visitors. When visitors come and look at our schools and our baseball or our sports facilities, they look at everything around it. So it's important that city officials and school district in Richland County to work together to improve that part of it. At the same time, work together and communicate what is the best way to make our children safe, and give the opportunity for every teacher, every good teacher, to come to our school district and teach our kids to be better leaders in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamika will give you the next opportunity to respond. For an area to thrive, it needs good schools. How will you work with our local school districts to improve their quality of education in order to retain teachers and encourage families to live and grow in Columbia?
So as a mom of 3 public school children here in Richland 1, I know the importance of making sure not only that we have great quality schools within the city of Columbia, but that we're supporting the infrastructure that supports our teachers and the school staff. Currently, I've worked already with Richland 1 to make sure that not only are teachers supported, but that the school district and the kids are thriving. We are in our 15th year of Together We Can Read, where we take community leaders, many chamber rep members come, and we go into Richland 1 every single year and we read to the kids. Not only do we read to the kids, but after we read, we leave them with a book. Some of the kids, this is the first time they've actually had a book that is their own. That program has grown over the years, and we're expanding programs like that. But I think the city has a very important role in supporting the school district. And as mayor, although we're not over the school district, it's important that we're in constant communication with the superintendents and understand their needs and how we can support them. Whether it's supporting broadband in the community so that the students, when they're out of school time, have an opportunity to connect to the school. Whether it is understanding what's going on in the community so that if children are coming into the schools with adverse childhood experiences because there's been a shooting in their neighborhood, or because there was a domestic call that law enforcement went out and they saw law enforcement lock up a family member. Those children are coming in school that next day and expected to learn. And so we as a community have to understand our responsibility for creating that environment that children can learn. Also, when you talk about teachers, how we recruit teachers is we have to address affordable housing. Teachers are part of the population that we actually need to make sure that we're providing an opportunity for them to live in the school districts where they teach. Earlier this year, I had a teacher who at Richland 1 was living in Sumter because she could not afford here to live in the city. Thank goodness I was able to call my good friend Lila Anna Sauls, and we were able to at least get her an opportunity to make an application to affordable housing. And so those are the type of programs that we need to work together with our school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, same question to you, please. For an area to thrive, it needs good schools. How will you work with our local school districts to improve their quality of education in order to retain teachers and encourage families to live and grow in Columbia?
Good schools are a keystone to economic development. And three things kill a community: high taxes, poor schools, and high crime. I hate to say it, but we're on the wave of it. We have to address it. These are three issues we can't. We need to work with the school district, but at the same time, we got to hold them accountable. Because currently, if you go to the national website and you look up Richland 1, less than 30% of the kids that are graduating from there are career ready. Less than 51% of the money's being invested in the classroom. We got administrators making an average of close to $100,000. So you have to question, where is the priority, and how is that affecting the rest of our community? We talk a lot about investing in after-school programs and others. Well, we have a great opportunity, folks, to do that. Working together, we got recovery money coming in. The school district's getting $100 million of recovery money to be used. Well, wouldn't a great example would that be if they were investing in broadband and computers and things, so those kids have all that material, after school programs, continuing to have weekend education, because we're losing kids in the afternoon. But for us to be successful, we have to hold each other accountable. And we're not doing that currently. We're not holding each other accountable. We're not putting pressure. There's an economic engine, and we have to work together. We have to talk about how do we restructure those high taxes. That means us working with the school district. At the same time, we have to question, why is it $4,000 more per student in Richland 1 than in Greenville or Charleston? And we're not getting the results. So these are opportunities that we have right at our doorstep, but it's going to take all of us working together and holding each other accountable.
Thank you very much. Sam, same question to you. For an area to thrive, it needs good schools. How will you work with our local school districts to improve their quality of education in order to retain teachers and encourage families to live and grow in Columbia?
So Chris Hively did a study this past year of Columbia and talked about a number of things that a startup needed. And so Chris Hively is a guy who helped found MapQuest. He's gone around to a bunch of different cities across the country and done an analysis on what do those cities need to thrive and make sure that their startups, their businesses have the opportunity to attract talent. And so the tech study last year looked at the ages of 25 to 45, and I mentioned earlier that we were 10 to 15% lower than all of our peer cities. And so we have to think, why are young families choosing not to be in Columbia? The reality of it is everyone can't go to 2 high schools, right? Everybody can't go to AC Flora or Dreer. We've got to make sure that all of our schools are great. We got to make sure that no matter where you live in Columbia, you know that your child is going to be able to reach their God-given potential. That no matter where they live, they're going to be in a safe neighborhood. So those are answers that we have to check the box affirmatively here in Columbia. And so our youth and education plan that we put out months ago calls for the city to make sure that after 3 o'clock, we are taking ownership of our children, that we have an after-school program that's free to all children, that provides a hot meal, that brings in teachers, that brings in senior citizens who can make sure that they are pouring back into our youth. We've got to make sure that Columbia builds a reputation of being a place where your children are going to have every resource and asset that they need to conquer the world. And so those are things that we have to think about here in Columbia very differently. We got to build cooperation by working with not only the school district, but we have to have programs like the Columbia Career Academy, which we call for in our youth and education plan, that takes Richland 1 and Richland 2, Midlands Technical College, USC, brings all of our institutions together, brings the city and the county together to make sure that we have workforce training opportunities, not only available for our youth, but available for our adults, recognizing that in 2021.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. All right, so we have time for just 2 more questions. The second to last question will be on public safety, and Tamika, we'll start with you. Question is, looking to the safety and quality of life in the city, the overall crime rate is down in 2021. However, the violent crime rate is up about 8%. What do you feel contributes to the increased crime rate, and what are your plans to work collaboratively with city and county law enforcement to reduce violent crime?
Thank you. Well, violent crime is up nationwide. There was a Wall Street Journal article that said that 2020 was one of the most violent years in decades, and 2021 is already slated to be worse than 2020. So we know that we have an issue, but there are several ways that we have to address it. Here locally, there's several things that we can do. Number one, we've got to work on police recruitment and retention. And when we do that, it's not all about how much you pay an officer. We have to make sure that we have a starting pay that's higher, but we have to also understand that there are compression issues. And so we've got to make sure that we are addressing not only the entry salary, but other ways to get that salary up. We've already unleashed a plan that talks about recruitment and retention, talks about getting officers who can live in the city, also officers who are living within the community and they're building those relationships. In addition to police recruitment and retention, we have to look at evidence-based models for crime prevention, especially violent crimes and gun violence. We have got to look at the reasons that violent crime is up. Part of it is conflict resolution skills. Part of it is understanding that we have a high rate of poverty. In Colombia, we've got a 21% poverty rate. How do we address those issues so that we're reducing crime in our community? And then in addition to that, we have to understand the community's responsibility to be part of the solution. Law enforcement can only do so much, and law enforcement typically is towards the end. How do we are investing in our community so that we're keeping crime down, supporting families, reducing poverty? And how you're doing that is making sure that we have wraparound services, that we're supporting families where they are and addressing the needs that they have where they are. And that can be done through several things. Several initiatives I've already championed as an at-large council member, but expanding those and making sure that we're investing in our communities, making sure they're safe, making sure that our families have the resources that they need, that we have jobs, and therefore you are addressing the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, same question to you. Looking to the safety and quality of life in the city, the overall crime rate is down in 2021. However, violent crime is up about 8%. What do you feel contributes to the increased crime rate? And what are your plans to work collaboratively with city and county law enforcement to reduce violent crime?
So it's a multi-legged stool. Police retention is one. We have 52 officers, frontline officers that we don't have right now. We're competing against everybody in the country. If you ride into Colombia on I-20, there's a billboard that says 83,000 starting salary, Phoenix, Arizona, recruiting here. So when we're talking about recruiting and retention, we need to talk about the things that are important to them, not only pay, but equipment, autonomy, and support. Those are important. We talk a lot about community involvement. Community has to be involved. This is a community issue. It is a us issue. That means all of us. The other challenge we have is the judicial system. We've got too many people being let out on bond who are repeat offenders, violent repeat offenders, gun charges pending and everything. They're constantly being let out of the system and back in or committing these crimes. The fourth thing we have to address is opportunities. What can take a bullet away? A job, right? By working together and connecting with people in the community is key. And I want to take a minute. I had an opportunity to ride with some officers the other evening, and I have to tell you what I witnessed and what I saw was heartbreaking and shocking. When we talk about reaching out and being there with families, I was in a neighborhood where a mother was stabbed and a 2-year-old son was standing over her, looking at her bleeding, while her neighbors were around filming, nobody picking up the child, nobody addressing the issue, and nobody even knowing her last name. We've got to put a sense of community back in every community and bring them together. Because it used to be that if something happened, you could call on your neighbor. They would be there for you. As a kid, when I got in trouble twice, once by the neighbor and once by there. But we need to address those issues. We need to make sure each neighborhood in this city is safe for every child and every family.
Thank you. Sam, same question to you. Looking to the safety and quality of life in the city, the overall crime rate is down in 2021. However, violent crime is up about 8%. What do you feel contributes to the increased crime rate? And what are your plans to work collaboratively with city and county law enforcement to reduce violent crime?
Sure. So there's a couple of things that are responsible for the rise in violent crime that we've seen. At the end of the day, it's hope, right? So we've got to make sure that our citizens, the folks who are involved in these activities that are resulting in the loss of life, have hope and opportunity. So that our last question, where we talked about education, we've got to make sure that we are providing, I mentioned the after-school program, we've got to make sure that we are providing our children with wonderful opportunities to be engaged in a safe environment and activity. We've got our youth education plan, for example, calls for the elimination of registration fees. We need to make sure that our families that are trying their very, very best to provide an opportunity, a safe environment for their children, wonderful activities, we've got to make sure that they don't have to pay a registration fee to play football or basketball in the summer. We've got to make sure that we are engaging our youth and keeping them involved in something that is going to keep them away from some of these activities that end up resulting in the loss of life. But the other part of it is we've got to make sure that we have the manpower in our police department, not only to deal with crime, but to prevent crime. And so we don't just have 52 patrol officers that we're short of in the police department. We've got 93 officers, sworn officers that we are missing in our police department. We've got to make sure that we are addressing that, because when you have a shortage of manpower to that magnitude, you don't have an ability to make sure that that officer gets out of the car, out of that patrol car, and goes and talks to the individuals in that community, where you can build a relationship, where you can make sure that that there's trust in the neighborhood and the community. So we've got to make sure that we are engaging in not only policing that makes sure that we are able to respond to incidents, but make sure that we're able to prevent incidents as well. And so those are some of the things that we have to do if we're going to deal with not only crime, but prevent crime here in Columbia.
Thank you very much. Mo, same question to you. Looking to the safety and quality of life in the city, the overall crime rate is down in 2021. However, violent crime is up about 8%. What do you feel contributes to the increased crime rate, and what are your plans to work collaboratively with city and county law enforcement to reduce violent crime?
When we launched our campaign in middle of August this year, one of the things I talked about is community policing, and everybody talked about, so all my other candidates, of course, they're all talking about community and getting involved. So community policing. When I was doing the research on community policing, Charles Austin, if you all remember Charles Austin, the city brought him here in the 90s to make our city safer and take over the police department. He introduced community policing. Community policing is when you have police officers walk in the neighborhoods, introducing themselves to everybody that lives in the neighborhood, understand what the neighborhoods and what the citizens and what the neighbors are going through. So if somebody was shot, then the community office will be right there. But not only that, introduce substations, police substations in our parks, in our neighborhood, for people to go and get help immediately, rather than trying to find somebody or stop filming while they call 911. It's important that we have a place, a location, a central location for anybody in the neighborhood that can go and get help. And when I talk about police substations, I'm talking about an office at the park. If you would ask 100 people if they know what the police station is, 50% of them will probably tell you what the police station is. But if you ask them where the local park is, over 90% of them will tell you where the park is. It's important that we put our police substations in our parks for everybody to access and to find at the same time. But not only that, when I was in council, we've improved police budget every single year so we can give raises to the police officers, so we can retain them, so we can give them cars, so we can give them houses that they can live in our city. And guess what? Times are not the same every single year. We've gone through the pandemic. There is a lot of competition to get police officers and hire police officers, especially after 9/11. Let's do our best. As mayor, I'll be the first one to recruit officers and bring them here and introduce community police in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. So we have time for one more question, and that is going to be on the topic of homelessness. And Daniel, we'll start with you. What is your strategy for better funding and supporting community partners to assist adults, youth, and families with children who are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness?
Homelessness is a subject that we never seem to find the right answer for. I think our commitment to homelessness, we have close to 67 providers in the community and a whole host of, and what we've seen over the pandemic, it's increased, especially our chronic homelessness increased from close to 350 over 550, about a 63% increase. And that includes folks that have mental challenges, folks that have addiction and other things. I think what we see in Colombia is that our homeless services have been very effective for families and children, but we need to continue to invest in that. And that means a commitment from us. I think it's time for us to take an overall look at all the homeless services that are provided and look at who's actually creating results, who's actually showing us solid results. I'm not talking about how many meals you provided. I'm not talking about this. Who's actually helped folks get through the system and get where they need to go and get them the help. I had an opportunity this summer to go to Camp Cole and see 96 homeless kids go to camp for the first time. And I have to tell you, watching a young boy who had never caught a fish before in his life catch that fish, you would have thought that he won the lottery. It was the greatest moment in his life, and all he could do was talk about it and talk about it and smile about it. These are opportunities that we can help invest and help foster to help give these kids opportunity and hope. I think not only investing more funding into the family and children of homeless families, but also spending more time as mentors, getting the community involved. Homeless is not an issue we're going to solve today, tomorrow, or in the future. There's so many different unfortunate cracks and falls where you see people who have resources in their support system are not here. We need to help people get to their support system. We need to provide that support system.
Thank you. Sam, same question to you. What is your strategy for better funding and supporting community partners to assist adults, youth, and families with children who are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness?
I remember when I was in the mayor's office, you guys know how we in the South, and specifically in Colombia, how we have the phrase inclement weather. I remember we had a meeting, the person from Michigan is laughing at me, but I remember we had a meeting with our school district and the county and partners to talk about the fact that we were looking at a Wednesday having inclement weather and what the impact of that might be on our school district. And so our superintendent at that time pointed out that if we close our schools on a Wednesday, the number of kids that would go home on that and miss school that Thursday, that Friday, that Saturday and Sunday, the number of kids that depend on a backpack with food in it. And it was eye-opening thinking about it from that perspective. We think about the number of kids that are in that position here in Colombia. We've got to make sure that we are providing more resources, that we are helping out our providers. We've got to think about things from a new perspective, though. We got to bring more fresh ideas to the table that allow for us to deal with some of these challenges. Our homeless challenge in Colombia has been something that we've talked about for a long time. And we've got to make sure that we have the leadership that allows for us to tackle it in a new way. So I see that we've got organizations like Oliver Gospel here. We've got Transitions. We got some wonderful organizations that are doing amazing work here in Colombia we've got to make sure that we are not only providing the resources, the funding. So that means that we have to grow as a city. We have to have a mayor that has an economic development plan, a toolkit that allows for us to grow. But then we have to have a conversation about how we reinvest that growth here in Columbia so that we build a campus that allows for us to make sure that folks are able to get the housing and the treatment that they need, that transitional housing that they need, that we can co-locate services and care, recognizing that it's inhumane what we're doing right now. We've got to do better, y'all.
Thank you. Mo, same question to you. What is your strategy for better funding and supporting community partners to assist adults, youth, and families with children who are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness?
So let's, we've answered this a couple of times, and I'll tell you what my solution will be or my thoughts would be. Number one, we'll employ the adults, right? Give them a job that they can do anything they want to do in the state, in the city, and give them tokens instead of money. So they won't spend the money into drugs or alcohol. And it's been proven in other cities that we can support that. Number two, we need to support groups like Mercy or other nonprofits around the city that take one case at a time and build them up where they can be dependent on themselves, whether they have housing of themselves, they can take care of the medication of themselves. That's the kind of support we can offer. And thirdly, financially, maybe we can look at the way our hospitality tax can be spent on some of the homeless issues, on homeless funding for some of these nonprofit. When you think about it, it is a tourism. It affects the tourism and it affects the society itself and the safety of our public. But number four is the community policing. When you talk about community policing, having officers in the neighborhood looking out for everybody else, if there's a person, a homeless person walking around that needs help, we can give them some help right away. So it's important that we connect all these thoughts together, because that's what leadership is all about. And that's what I can offer as a mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamika, same question to you. What is your strategy for better funding and supporting community partners to assist adults, youth, and families with children who are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness?
I think the key part to your question, it talks about funding and support. I'm just going to briefly talk about funding. We have to make sure that we are investing funds in services that help our unhoused population. We have to understand our unhoused population is as diverse as any other population. So whether it's someone who's dealing with substance abuse issues, mental health issues, lack of resources, no job, we have to be able to meet them where they are and fund opportunities for them. But in addition to that, the support I think is very important. And I wanted to spend more time on that because it's easy to say support, but what does support look like? When you have a provider who is trying to provide housing in a community, but because the neighborhood doesn't want it, or because people think, well, maybe that's not, we shouldn't have that kind of facility, where's the support? And so what happens? Something doesn't get funded and we have more people who are living on our streets. So support means being a leader and understanding that we have needs in our community that have to be met. We have to do it in an equitable way. We don't need to put all group homes in one area or all affordable housing in one area. We have to look at having multifamily housing, different income levels. But we really need a leader who is going to understand the issue and be willing to lead and provide the resources. And whether it's our federal resources with community development block grant money and how we invest that to provide housing, whether it is expanding programs like the homeless court that is meeting people where they are and we've transitioned dozens of people off of the streets into permanent housing. If it is supporting supportive services, when people can live on their own, but you need supportive services, we have to invest funds in that. And so my strategy and my job and promise as mayor would be to make sure that we're dealing with it in a holistic way and understand that homeless is just as complex as any other issue, and we have to meet it with multiple solutions.
Thank you. All right, so we're coming up on the end of our time, and I told each candidate that they would have 1 minute to give us some closing remarks. Sam, we will start with you. Please give us your final thoughts for the evening.
So first of all, thank you all so much for taking the time to attend this and view this conversation. are having a conversation about our future, about where we go from here. Where does Columbia go? How do we make sure that we are tackling some of these issues? We just talked about homelessness. We're talking about economic growth. We're talking about hospitality, something that we have so much opportunity to grow and make sure that Columbia is at the forefront of for the next 10 to 20, 30 years. We have to have the leadership that's going to allow for us to make sure that we're thinking boldly about where we go, that we're able to accept and think through new ideas that will allow for us to unlock our potential here in Columbia. So I want you to imagine a Columbia where we are able to view and make sure that we are harnessing our talent here in Columbia, making sure that we're able to retain some of the wonderful, bright minds that I see here, some of our University of South Carolina students right here in Columbia. And so I'm so excited to have this conversation this year that we've had. But make sure that on November 2nd that you go out and that you vote, of course, for me. But make sure that you check out our website as well, Sam Johnson.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Mo, we'll turn things to you next. 1 minute for your final thoughts, please.
January 19, 2021, we were doing a celebration of life for Uncle Andy. And the preacher stood up and said, God works in his own mysterious way, where he brings a man from Lebanon to touch so many lives and make their lives better. And that's what I want to be. I want to be the mayor that can change and touch every life in our city by making our city clean and safe, by ending the corruption, by allowing small business to blossom and grow in our city. But lastly, to develop the riverfront, to allow everybody to come to this city and achieve their American dream, whatever who they are, whatever they want to do, give them a chance to achieve their American dream. My name is Baduro, and I'm running for mayor to make a difference in everybody's life and make our city the American dream city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. Tamika, we'll turn to you. 1 minute for your final thoughts, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. We talked on several topics today, couldn't get to everything, and so I would encourage you to learn more about our campaign. Go to our website, divineformayor.com. You can see my policies, some of the ideas, but most importantly, what I have done. Over the last 19 years, I've been working with you and for you to make sure that we are taking on our toughest challenges and meeting them head on, but also understanding the opportunities that we have in front of us. As a wife, a mom, and a small business owner, and a Columbia native, I understand the promise that the city has. I also understand what it will take to make sure that we're moving forward. I've had the opportunity to work with two great mayors, Mayor Bob and Mayor Benjamin, but we need a leader now who's going to not only continue moving the city forward, but make sure that we are prioritizing equity within our city. I'm running to build a city that it has more progressive and equitable growth. We need to make sure everyone is included, not just in Columbia of today, but in our future. And as your next mayor, I will make sure that we build that inclusive and equitable city. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, same to you. 1 minute for your final thoughts, please.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out this evening. I really appreciate everybody being here. Look, it's real simple. We have challenges here and we have a lot of opportunities. I'm not doing this because I want to be on CNN or I want to be up in Washington. I'm doing this because everything in my life is right here. My family, my house, my business, my friends. I've invested 35 years in this community that I came to, quite frankly, in college, and I thought I was only here for 4 years, and here I am still here. This is home, and I want people to feel that they can belong here and that it's their home. I hear too many times people say, I live there. Well, where's your home? They need to belong and be part of ours. And the only way we're going to do that is if we change our structure and address the problems that we've been talking about today. That means that we need to have a safer, smarter, and stronger city. How do we get that? We make public safety a #1 priority. We not only continue to fund technology and equipment to make a difference, but we focus on how to be smarter, more effective, and more efficient. And we turn around and invest in economic development so that we all can grow.
Thank you, Daniel. And so to close us out for tonight, let me turn things back over to Carl Blackstone.
Hey, thank you very much, Kurt. Can we give Kurt a round of applause? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. This election's coming up in 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks. It's important. And so I really, there's a a huge investment of time to run for mayor. It's a big commitment, but one that we don't take lightly. And so I want to thank all four of y'all for willingness to run and invest your time and energy. So thank you very much. Very informative stuff. So thanks for those that tuned in online. Thanks to you, all of y'all, on behalf of the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, Urban Land Institute, USC, and the Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.